The big story we're tracking this morning, a UN body has designated 2611 mastermind Hafiz Saeed's brother as a global terrorist. They have put curbs on his movements as well as his assets. Now, the United Nations Security Council has listed Pakistan-based terrorist Abdul Rehman Makki as a global terrorist under its ISIL, Daesh and Al-Qaida Sanctions Committee.
That's right, Parmeshwar. The listing comes after China last year put on India's bid to name the Lashkar-e-Taiba leader a global terrorist. In June 2022, India slammed China after it blocked the proposal to list Abdul Rehman Makki under the Sanctions Committee, also known as the UNSC 1267 Committee. Well, to get more details, we have Maha joining us. Maha, firstly, get us details and a background on this terrorist who has now been named by the United Nations. This is, the brother of the mastermind of the 2611, Hafiz Saeed.
In fact, he's the brother-in-law of Hafiz Saeed, the LET founder, and Abdul Rehman Makki himself has been associated with the Lashkar-e-Taiba in several leadership positions. He has occupied various leadership roles in Lashkar-e-Taiba and has played a big role in raising funds for the LET operation. So that has been a big cause of concern. In fact, in 2020, a Pakistani anti-terrorism court had in fact convicted Abdul Rehman Makki on one count of terror financing and sentenced him to prison as well. However, the concern with any such move in Pakistan is always that the final charge sheet doesn't go through and the person is never arrested or put in prison. That is a terrorist. And therefore, the listing of Abdul Rehman Makki by the United Nations Security Council 1267 Sanctions Committee was necessary because that would put a hold on his bank accounts, freeze his bank assets. Also, any movement of arms and ammunition towards him will again be embargoed. His travels will also be embargoed. That is the reason that India and the US together had been pushing for Abdul Rehman Makki's sanctioning. And as both of you rightly mentioned, last year China had in fact blocked several attempts by India and the US to sanction in the 1267 committee several terrorists, out of which Abdul Rehman Makki was one. In June last year, China had put a technical hold. A technical hold remains in place for 6 months, after which either it gets lifted or if a fresh proposal is put forward, then China would have had to react. Now, since it's 6 months since then, the technical hold would have been automatically gone, and therefore, if China had not once again pushed for any sort of hold, then this sanctioning would have happened. So, in this scenario, it does appear that since there was no further move by the Chinese side, this sanctioning has now finally happened after a big effort that has been made by both India and the United States in sanctioning him. Abdul Rehman Makki was born in Bahawalpur and his current address is Muridke in Pakistan, which is the hub of LET activities.
Thank you so much, Maha, for getting us all those details. Now, after a stormy day one of the 3-day winter session of the Delhi Assembly, it's set to reconvene today. The session got disrupted yesterday after rival MLAs clashed over the Finland teacher training row, following the Chief Minister of Delhi, Arvind Kejriwal, that led a protest march to the LG House. Parmeshwar.
Now, this has been happening as part of the ongoing power tussle between the Lieutenant Governor and the Aam Aadmi Party. And it's going to be brought up today as well as what we're expecting amid the party's demand for the LG to meet all AAP MLAs. For the latest, let's go across to my colleague Vedant, who's tracking all the developments for you. Vedant, what can we expect on day 2 of the Delhi Assembly winter session?
You see, Parmeshwar, very interestingly, yesterday, the Congress lashed out at both the Aam Aadmi Party and the BJP, saying that, they've wasted day 1 of this 3-day winter session. And that, in a sense, sums up the deadlock that we're seeing in the national capital because of, this power tussle between the centre-appointed Lieutenant Governor and the Aam Aadmi Party. So, of course, that is something that is expected today as well. And another important thing that, the Congress President, the Delhi Congress President said was that, both the parties are, in a sense, wasting taxpayers' money. So, after the deadlock, in the councillors meet that we saw on the 6th of January when the elected councillors of both the parties met, a similar sort of a situation is being seen in this 3-day winter session of the Delhi Assembly. So today as well, the Aam Aadmi Party is likely to, bring up the issue of administrative share in power as far as the national capital is concerned. Of course, protests are also expected as far as the Aam Aadmi Party MLAs are concerned. Yesterday, of course, Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal led this huge, protest march from the Delhi Assembly to the Lieutenant Governor's house. Now, the issue at the heart of the matter really is that the control over bureaucrats. Of course, the control over bureaucracy is something that has been a major flashpoint between the Aam Aadmi Party and the Lieutenant Governor. So, of course, that is something that will be brought up today as well. And, of course, as you rightly mentioned, the Finland teachers' row, that is something that is also likely to cast its shadow on the Delhi Assembly. Remember, another important thing is that the Lieutenant Governor finally said that he is ready to meet, Arvind Kejriwal and Deputy Chief Minister Manish Sisodia. However, they said that they will meet the Lieutenant Governor to resolve this power tussle only if he agrees to meet all the MLAs of the Aam Aadmi Party. So, of course, that is something that the Aam Aadmi Party is going to reiterate today in the Assembly as well. Yesterday, of course, we saw that BJP MLAs came to the Vidhan Sabha wearing, masks and carrying oxygen cylinders as they protest against, the Aam Aadmi Party's inaction, quote unquote, as far as air pollution is concerned in the national capital. However, both the parties have, in a sense, failed to really do anything as far as the capital's worsening air quality is concerned. Remember, many pertinent issues are pending. The primary among them is filling the vacant posts of principals, teachers in government colleges. That is something that was to be discussed in the Delhi Assembly. However, because of protests by rival MLAs, that could not be discussed today. The Assembly session is being held ahead of the mayoral election that are to be held on the 24th of January. So it remains to be seen how much business is actually done as far as day 2 of the Assembly session is concerned, which is today.
Vedant, thank you so much as always for joining us with the latest update. Now, as Vedant was mentioning, Congress leader Rahul Gandhi was involved in a face-off with the Punjab Chief Minister Bhagwant Mann. As the Bharat Jodo Yatra passes through Punjab, the state the Congress lost in the state election to the Aam Aadmi Party last year.
Well, Mr. Gandhi has renewed accusations of the Punjab government being run via remote control from Delhi by Arvind Kejriwal. The Punjab's Chief Minister hit back, asking Mr. Gandhi to mind his own business.
दिल्ली से नहीं चलाना चाहिए, पंजाब को पंजाब से चलाना चाहिए। और मैं पंजाब के चीफ मिनिस्टर से कहना चाहता हूं, भगवंत मान जी से कहना चाहता हूं, आप पंजाब के चीफ मिनिस्टर हो। दिल्ली के दबाव में, केजरीवाल जी के दबाव में भगवंत मान को नहीं आना चाहिए। आपको इंडिपेंडेंटली यहां पे काम करना चाहिए। आपके किसानों, मजदूरों की बात, दिल की बात सुनकर पंजाब के चीफ मिनिस्टर को काम करना चाहिए। किसी का रिमोट कंट्रोल नहीं बनना चाहिए। धन्यवाद।
And here is what the Chief Minister had to say. Bhagwant Mann has put out a tweet saying, Rahul ji, it would be better if you do not make unsubstantiated claims in Punjab. I was made the Chief Minister by the people of Punjab, and Channi ji by Rahul Gandhi. Chief Minister Amrinder Singh was insulted and removed from Delhi. The Punjab Congress chief was pushed and shoved during the Yatra. When you say these things, it does not look good, is what Bhagwant Mann put out in a tweet in a reply to Rahul Gandhi. And the BJP's 2-day National Executive meeting, which is likely to endorse an extension of tenure for party National President JP Nadda and deliberate on its strategy for assembly and general elections that started in Delhi on Monday with the national capital. This is the Prime Minister that joined the brainstorming session in the national capital, Parmeshwar.
Right, Divya, in fact, in classic Prime Minister Modi style, he arrived at the venue after a mega roadshow of about a kilometre from Patel Chowk to the NDMC head office in central Delhi. But what caused heads to turn? Well, on the sidelines, Prime Minister Modi had a chat with Karnataka's former Chief Minister B.S. Yediyurappa during the party meet, sparking buzz over the BJP's Karnataka plan. Now, this meeting with the Prime Minister has raised speculation about a turn in fortune for the four-time CM of Karnataka.
प्रधानमंत्री जी के खिलाफ नेगेटिव कैंपेन करना और उसमें एकदम हल्के भाषा में या अब्यूसिव लैंग्वेज के साथ, नेगेटिव टोन के साथ प्रधानमंत्री जी को व्यक्तिगत नीचे दिखाते हुए भाषा के साथ बार बार जो नेगेटिव कैंपेन होते रहा, उन सब में लीगली कोर्ट एक के बाद दूसरा करके सुप्रीम कोर्ट तक मामला हर एक बार गया.
The two-day National Executive of the BJP is presently underway. One day gone, another day now left. Today is also a very busy day for the Bharatiya Janata Party delegates, about 350 of them, where the brainstorming is going to continue for 2023 assembly elections as well as the big 2024 electoral contest. Now, on Monday, the Bharatiya Janata Party in its brainstorming decided that they are going to concentrate on 72,000 booths. So really it has come down to booth level management completely, which is going to be in the hands of these national executive members, which means very senior people are going to take charge and not leave booth management just to the booth level worker. Now this is a formula which was adopted in Uttar Pradesh elections, where the whole state was divided in three parts. And Amit Shah, Rajnath Singh as well as JP Nadda were directly in charge of managing booths. It seems the same formula seems to be extended for 2024 election planning also. You see, while the BJP is super confident with all the road shows and the show of strength, the BJP also realizes that it needs to battle some internal complacency. After all, there was a grand win in Gujarat for the BJP, but there were also losses. There were losses in the MCD elections, there was loss in Himachal Pradesh. The BJP over the past few years has lost important elections like West Bengal also. So given all these things, it's very important for the BJP to manage this internal complacency, at the same time also keep the mood upbeat and the sort of message that needs to be taken right down to the people when the BJP prepares for the next or upcoming challenges, electoral challenges.
Let's get you the latest from Tamil Nadu's bull taming festival. Two people, including a bull tamer, have died in Tamil Nadu's Madurai district during a Jallikat festival, is what we're being told.
Jallikattu has been an emotive issue in the state. The Supreme Court had banned it in 2014, citing animal cruelty. But 3 years later, the then Tamil Nadu government brought in amendment to the law and legalized the festival yet again. To get more details, we have Sam joining us. Sam, get us details of the two people who have died during Jallikattu.
Divyan Parameshwar, one of them who died is the bull tamer himself, who had tamed a good number of bulls and was among the good performers yesterday. He was gored to death. And another person is a spectator who had come from Tiruchi district. He was hospitalized, but he died there later, not responding to treatment. And around 30 others suffered injuries. Chief Minister M.K. Stalin has announced a relief of 3 lakh rupees. And as we speak now, another bull taming event is underway at Alanganallur, which is being called as the capital of Jallikattu, where more than 1,000 bulls and around 500 bull tamers are participating. Authorities say they are complying with the Supreme Court guidelines by erecting double barricading to make sure spectators are kept at bay. They're also releasing the bull tamers in batches so that there's no overcrowding on the arena, both to achieve human safety as well as animal safety and to avert any animal cruelty there. And in fact, this was earlier banned by the Supreme Court, citing cruelty in the year 2014. But later, the Tamil Nadu government had brought about an amendment after the massive Jallikattu protests across Tamil Nadu, particularly in Chennai. And then this was paved way. And even as we speak now, the Supreme Court is now hearing a batch of petitions which have appealed against that ordinance and that amendment later, which has paved way for this conduct of the festival despite a Supreme Court ban. That's something we'll have to wait to watch how it happens. But authorities say they have put in place all safety measures amid concerns of animal cruelty. Animals, all the bulls that are registered are being screened, both in terms of their fitness and in terms of whether they've been given alcohol to turn them more ferocious. They're also recording at several locations, deploying animal rights activists and volunteers.
Right. Thank you, Sam, for getting us details of that very tragic incident of 2 people dying, including the bull tamer. Moving on to counter radicalization in madrasas, more than 100 small private madrasas in Assam have been merged with large ones, according to the police chief in Assam.
Now, not all madrasas are doing that in terms of radicalization, but there are evidence of it. There is indeed a threat. These are the words of the DGP in Assam, Bhaskar Jyoti Mahant. Listen in.
ये लोग मदरसा घुस के या कुछ मस्जिद में आके मौलाना खुद को कहलवा के और शिक्षा देते हैं, कुछ अरबिक शिक्षा, और मशवरा करता है रेडिकलाइज थॉट्स का। ये हर जगह नहीं हो रहा है, कुछ मदरसा में हो रहा है, लेकिन ये चिंता का कारण है। कुछ नियम बना रहे हैं, 3 किलोमीटर का लेंथ में सिर्फ एक ही मदरसा रहेगा, 50 से कम स्टूडेंट हो तो वो मदरसा बड़ा मदरसा में शामिल हो जाएगा, वो छोटा मदरसा नहीं रहेगा। सो ये लोग भी हमें काफ़ी सपोर्ट दे रहे हैं। करीब 100 मदरसा ऑलरेडी बड़ा मदरसा से शामिल हो चुके हैं। वी हैव क्रिएटेड ए सिस्टम वेयरइन वी हैव सेट अप रेगुलेशंस। ये लोग एक फिल अप करके हमको दे रहे हैं फिलहाल, और इसको हम एक पोर्टल में डाल रहे हैं, और कोई बाहर से टीचर आने से पुलिस वेरिफिकेशन होगा।
Now, sources have informed us that 5 Manipur cops have been held for carrying drugs from Myanmar. This at a time when Manipur Chief Minister N. Biren Singh has initiated a massive crackdown against drug peddlers in the state. And much to the embarrassment of the state police force, 5 Manipur police personnel have been arrested.
This while ferrying drugs including heroin and highly addictive methamphetamine tablets from the India-Myanmar border. According to sources, the 5 police personnel, including a Havaldar, were in fact arrested. This after collecting drugs illegally from the Myanmar transporting area. They were transporting it from Myanmar to the state capital, Imphal. They were arrested during a routine vehicle check on the national highway. The drugs have now been seized.
The commando team, which was posted in More and was under order of posting to Special Unit Commando, was detained, and from their vehicle 100 soap cases containing suspected heroin number 4 and 8 bundles of suspected WY tablets were detected, and also a cash amount of rupees 80,000 was detected from one of the accused persons. The details of the personnel of the CDO teams who have been arrested are Havaldar K. Chachoba Singh, Rifleman Thiet Subhash Chothe, Y. Dineshwar Mitei, M. Premachandra Singh and N. Dorindrajit Singh. The seized article narcotic items along with the arrested persons are being handed over to Kakching Police Station for further legal action, and the unit commanders of the commando personnel are also being informed of the same.
And with that, we're slipping into a very short break. Lots more coming up on the other side.
Including details on how ahead of Republic Day, a big arms recovery has been made in Delhi. A few people have been held. We'll get you the details in a moment. The other big story we're tracking this morning, a huge cache of arms has been seized in Delhi ahead of Republic Day, and 4 gang suppliers have been arrested for supplying over 400 weapons. We're told they used to supply weapons in 5 states by bringing these weapons from Madhya Pradesh.
The Delhi Police Special Cell arrested the gang which brought arms from Madhya Pradesh and supplied them to the Delhi NCR region, Punjab, Haryana, Rajasthan, as well as the western part of Uttar Pradesh. The 4 arrested accused have been identified, and from the accused, the police have seized 10 semi-automatic pistols as well as 10 magazines, and 8 single-shot pistols have also been recovered. let's get you an update from the world of hockey. The Indian team has made a great start to the Hockey World Cup campaign, bringing back crowds and the TV audience to make the sport safer for players and attract for audiences. The World Hockey Federation has rung in a few changes. Let's take a look.
World Hockey has tweaked rules to safeguard players. Here are some of the new rules that have been brought in. The International Hockey Federation has allowed players defending penalty corners to keep their protective equipment on their face even after the ball goes outside the striking circle. Let's have a look at the new rule. Rule 4.2 has been changed to allow for defending players using penalty corner protective equipment to continue to play the ball outside the circle after an interception during the taking of a penalty corner. Players can now continue to run with the ball while keeping their protective equipment on, but they must remove that same equipment immediately after at the first opportunity to do so, and always inside the 23-meter area. Now here's what this means. Here's a look at this picture. This is the 23-meter line, and that's the striking circle. After striking the ball in, they can still keep their protective equipment on, but they have to remove before this 23-meter line. Earlier, the player defending the penalty corners were bound to remove their protective equipment immediately inside the circle. So this is the striking circle once the ball was flicked. Why has this rule change been brought about? To protect athlete safety, so that the focus can be on the ball and the play and not removing the protective equipment during a pressurized defensive situation. This was successfully trialed during the Junior World Cup in 2021. Now here's another rule change that has been brought about by the FIH, or the World Hockey Federation. Keeping in mind player safety, FIH has also made this significant rule change which relates to aerial balls. Previously, intercepting a falling aerial ball was considered to be illegitimate, but now the FIH has granted relaxation to players in this regard.
Well, every year the World Economic Forum comes out with its Global Risks Report. It's a report which talks about the state of the world's economy, some of the biggest economic challenges, but also socio-economic challenges which the world faces. Mirek Dusek is somebody who's been associated closely with the report this year. He is a managing director here at the World Economic Forum. Wonderful to speak to you. Thanks very much for being with us. We all come over here with a sense of optimism. But I do suspect that there is a little less optimism this year because of twin challenges. One, the Ukraine war, and of course, the pandemic, which isn't over, unfortunately. So when you came out with this report, based on Ukraine and COVID, what are your primary concerns?
No, it's just to start to say that, of course, we live in a world that seems to be defined by challenges right now. 2022 has been a tough year, I think, for all of us. But it's important, and that's at the core of this meeting as well, it's important that it doesn't lead to the loss of agency. It's actually here that we want to make sure that we reinstitute a sense of agency, collective agency, to be able to do something about some of these crises that have transpired in 2022. Now, the Global Risk Report has been a knowledge tool, something that actually we've been publishing for many years. And again, it's not about just highlighting some of the risks that are on the horizons. Either, you may know, we scan the horizon for the next 2 years, but then also for 10 years. But it's really about how are we not naive about the landscape that is there, so we need to really map it. But then also, what does it mean for public-private cooperation, and what are the things we can do to anticipate some of these risks? So now we've published the latest edition. It's stemming from different sources, but of course it's relying a lot on experts as well as business executives. Gives you a sense of how people are looking at the horizon, 2 years and 10 years. Now the 2-year horizon, as you may know, the results are really heavily tilted toward looking at the cost of living crisis as well as geoeconomic pressures.
Yes.
Now, the 10-year horizon, the clear message is the climate challenge.
Yeah.
And so I think this is important because it's also connected to the philosophy of the meeting. We're meeting here after 3 years of not being able to meet in January.
Yeah.
So this is the first January meeting.
Back, yes.
And what is underpinning the meeting here is this dual vision to be able to help leaders that are gathered here with solutions for the here and now, because arguably if you're a leader right now, you're confronted with immense challenges around food, energy, inflation, etc. So navigating 2023 will be important.
Right.
But then how do you not lose sight of the both opportunities and challenges for the 10-year horizon? How do you invest in the future?
So let's talk a little bit about that 10-year horizon, but also something which we need to focus on now, sustainable growth. And by which I mean it also includes a really close idea of where we are environmentally, the fact that the world hasn't been coming close to meeting its goals. But this remains a primary concern for you. So when you talk about sustainable growth, it's very much looking at the economy, the environment, and what it implies, right?
Absolutely. If I look at the program of the annual meeting, we have the largest number of sessions ever, dialogues, both public panels, but also working sessions on climate, nature, food, and energy. Mm-hmm. And we really treat it as one system, because you could argue that some of these deficiencies that we've had and some of the crises that we've experienced are actually the result of humankind and leaders not being able to connect issues better in a system. Mm-hmm. So particularly energy and nature and climate, very important that we tackle that together. Now, on the climate agenda, we have ongoing initiatives where we particularly focus on how business and government can work together. Now, we are, of course, working in parallel or in support of the official processes, so COP27, 28, very important. We're in between the two.
Yeah.
And so we support with how do we make sure that, again, businesses and governments are looking at some concrete opportunities to make progress. So that's definitely one thing. The other thing, we are really on the front foot in terms of looking at how innovation can also help us get there. You may know that Fatih Birol, for example, from the International Energy Agency is quoted now, it's well known that up to a half of the technologies that we need to get to net zero are still not deployed at scale in the market. So what is it that we can do to help with that? Sure. And so here you will also see a lot of emphasis on solutions. So presenting these different innovations that may be at a nascent stage right now, but how do we help those solutions to scale? I think that will be important.
I think that's a big concern when it comes to green technologies and new technologies emerging, is the entire financing structure. Perhaps that's going to come up as well in conversations. I wanted to focus a little bit more on a couple of points in the report which have come out. Technology will exacerbate inequalities. Why do you say so?
It's really, of course, stemming from some of the survey data that we have there, and we're always looking at both. Mm-hmm. And so, as I mentioned, we feel that technology and innovation is so important for some of these challenges that we have in front of us, climate, trade as well, etc. And of course, we also need to be very realistic, or we need to say, okay, we are looking at the opportunities of technology and innovation, and how do we make sure that governments and businesses and civil society are also prepared for the potential risks, and again, how do we anticipate
What are those risks?
So
a digital divide, for example,
so we have
the cost of technology.
Of course, this is such an important issue. How do we make sure that technology is really a force for good? You may know that we have been working on creating a global network of centers for the fourth industrial revolution, and the motto of that is actually, how do we make sure that humankind and society has agency over the outcomes of deployment of these technologies? We also work a lot on how do we increase the access to technology. We have something called the Edison Alliance. So there is a lot of initiatives that we have around exactly that. How we not just waiting for things to happen, but rather are proactive around decreasing the digital divide. But also, frankly, the big other big issue, as you know, is how do we make sure, for example, that out of the deployment of new technologies, we don't have bigger threats to democracies.
True.
And so, as you know, disinformation, misinformation, also digital safety for children.
Yes.
Those are big issues for parents, for people that care about democracy. And so it's really important that, again, we give the platform for leaders to think through those dilemmas. And how do we do our best to prevent those risks from happening?
Cybersecurity, that's a huge concern as well at so many levels, whether it's banking frauds or frauds perpetuated against individual nations. How do you look at cybersecurity as a real concern going forward?
As we become more digital, and we are digitizing our economies, also digital economies are a key source of new growth in the future. So if you connect it to the current rather challenging economic situation, it is so important that we use the opportunity of the digital economy to drive new growth. But as you said, as we are more integrated digitally, then of course we also have more at stake digitally, and we have more to protect. And so there are, of course, leaders here that are from companies that have that are working on cybersecurity, but we also have leaders here that are we have heads of intelligence agencies here who are looking at different kinds of cyber threats. But we are also, of course, having other decision makers that are then helping, for example, companies think through what is it that they need to protect. Now, the key question is, what is critical infrastructure, for example? Because you could argue that over the past few years, you've seen a widening of the concept of what actually is critical in terms of infrastructure and what you need to protect, but you can't protect everything. So I think the core word here would be smart strategies to how to protect our increasingly digital lives and digital assets, again, to be able to also, frankly, drive recovery in the future.
Sure. One of the scariest things, perhaps the scariest one in the report, is the specter of a nuclear attack or a nuclear threat. I've covered the Ukraine war twice in the last couple of months, and that is a constant concern. All of Europe faces that threat. So everything we're talking about over here sort of comes under that overshadowing threat. Is that something that leaders here will be talking about? How does that affect your thinking as you came out with this report?
I think overall, let's face it, Russia's invasion of Ukraine brought back to a larger mainstream as a significant factor for decisions, geopolitics. Yes. You could argue that prior to that, it had been less of a factor globally for a lot of actors that were globally active. So it's back. We have a session here that is called Thinking the Unthinkable, about exactly that. And I don't think you would have found it here previously. Now, we take it extremely seriously because Russia is a nuclear power. They are part of the Security Council, and we have a hot war in a major country. And so it is really important that we not only dust off things that have been there in terms of the architecture for managing that risk, but are actually actively thinking, okay, with the new capabilities and the changed geopolitical landscape, are there things that we need to think anew around how to prevent this risk from ever, frankly, happening or manifesting itself in real life? So it is back on the agenda.
Yeah. A final question. India has a huge presence at the World Economic Forum. We've got a huge presence in Davos as well. While obviously building an interconnected world is your priority at the WEF, India is now at a time when our rate of growth is higher than most countries in the world. There's a genuine sense of optimism. Could you tell us a little bit about India and what you see at the WEF this year?
I think the big story is really the G20 presidency that is upcoming, and in a way, the role of India in the world, not only through the G20 presidency, but it's a nice also moment or important moment, is really how do you stem the tide of fragmentation in the world. So this is at the core of this meeting. We say cooperation in a fragmented world. And if I'm not mistaken, the motto of the G20 presidency is very similar, around one world. And so really the ability to come together, maybe not being completely naive. Of course, there are different perspectives on different things, but how do we better join up on issues like climate and trade? Because if we don't do that, we will have less growth, we will have more inflation, we will have more poverty in the world. And so the role of India could not be more important. Now you have outstanding participation here from the business sector, very strong participation from the governmental sector, a lot of also other innovators. And maybe just to finish on India, I think that it is one of the most exciting economies right now out there, as you said, relatively compared to others, high growth. Now, the big opportunity, of course, also is around the clean energy infrastructure. Yes. This is also, by the way, going to be a big topic here in the context of the Inflation Reduction Act in the United States, the existing Green Deal in Europe. What are the clean energy infrastructure plans in the world as also a conduit for growth that is more inclusive will be key here, and I think India is a hot market for that.
Yeah. Well, it's been great speaking to you. Thank you so much. So there you have it, a snapshot of what the World Economic Forum 2023 is looking at. There is the spectre, a larger vision of a threat, the nuclear threat, but then there's cybersecurity as well. There's climate, which is the underlying challenge across the world. And ultimately, it's all about sustainable growth, sustainable development, sustainable economies, which ensure that millions around the world who are suffering are out of poverty. The world needs to come together. It cannot be fragmented. That perhaps is the central message.